I will go through candlesticks and different patterns they form, which could be used to interpret where price will go next. First, some basics of how a candlestick is constructed, and to show this, I will start to explain by looking at a candlestick where price closed up, and I will call this a positive candlestick. The area of the positive candlestick, which is green, is called the real body. The little line below the real body is called the shadow, and the furthest point of the shadow is called the low. And the low is quite simply the lowest price which that specific candlestick did reach. On a positive candlestick, the open of the candlestick is the bottom of the candlestick's real body, and is the price at which the candlestick first began to form. The line which is above the positive candlestick's real body is also called the shadow, but the furthest point of the upper shadow is called the high, and this is the highest price reached during the time this particular candlestick was formed. The close for a positive candlestick is the upper part of the real body, and the close is the price where that specific candlestick stopped to form, and another candlestick instead began to form beside it. The construction of a positive candlestick is easy to understand if you contemplate that at the open, the positive candlestick begins to form, and then it could go down and create a lower shadow, but before the positive candlestick stops to form, it will move above and close above its open in order to become a positive candlestick. And if it moves up to a price above its open, but then ventures down a little, but still above the open, an upper shadow and a high is formed. A candlestick where price went down and closed down, I will very conveniently call a negative candlestick, but not that it isn't anything special negative about it. You could place a trade on a negative candlestick as well as a positive candlestick. The area of the negative candlestick, which is red, is called the real body. The little line below the real body is called the shadow, and the furthest point of the shadow is called the low. And the low is quite simply the lowest price which that specific candlestick did reach, the same as with a positive candlestick. On a negative candlestick, the open is the upper part of the negative candlestick's real body, and the open is the price at which the candlestick first began to form. The line which is above the negative candlestick's real body is also called the shadow, and the furthest point of the upper shadow is called the high, and this is the highest price reached during the time this particular candlestick was formed, same again as with a positive candlestick. The close for a negative candlestick is the bottom of the candlestick's real body, and the close is the price where that specific candlestick stopped to form, and another candlestick instead began to form beside it. The construction of a negative candlestick is easy to understand if you think about that at the open, the negative candlestick begins to form, and then it could go up and create the upper shadow, but before the negative candlestick stops to form, it will move below and close below its open in order to become a negative candlestick. And if it moves down to a price below its open, but then goes up a little, but still below the open, and lower shadow and a low is formed. In my explanation of how candlesticks are constructed, I have used the colors green and red but on many platforms the default is white and black. We'll say if a candlestick goes up and closes up, it will be white, and if it is going down and closes down, it will be black. And candlesticks come from Japan, and in Japan the default colors are red and black. Red when a candlestick goes up and closes up, and black when a candlestick goes down and closes down. It is up to you if you want to use one of the just mentioned color schemes of the candlesticks, but I would recommend that if your broker platform doesn't have green and red as the default color, just change the scheme to green and red. And in the section where I did go through the Forex platforms, I showed you how to change the scheme, so you wouldn't have any problem with that. Green and red are such wonderful colors while trading because of its visual appearance, due to the fact that they remind you about traffic lights. You could think about them as that when the candlesticks are green, the candlesticks drive on and their mood is soaring to the sky. But when the candlesticks are red, they have to wait and their mood is falling down, as well as being red with rage. That is probably something all could relate to, considering the relief it is to arrive at a crossroad and having the traffic lights switch to green, as well as how frustrating it could be waiting at a red light. But just don't take this allegory too literary and only trade when the candles are green, because in order to make money in the Forex, you can't make trades depending on feelings, but based on well-cut educated guesses. Depending on what time frame diagram you're looking at, candlesticks have a compounded in them price action spanning over different amounts of time. Let me explain. If you were to look at a 15-minute chart, a candlestick on that chart would be showing price action for a 15-minute period, and the next 15-minute period will be indicated by the following candlestick. And on a daily chart, every candlestick shows a whole day of what price did that particular day. Example, what high or lows it formed and where it opened and closed that day. It is important to understand that the phenomena of how the candlesticks develops is closely watched by analytics, and the candlesticks means different things depending on how long or short the lower and or upper shadow is, and depending upon how long or short the real body is, as well as what the preceding candlesticks looked like. These different combinations have different names, and now it is time for me to go through the most common and effective of these candlestick patterns. But before getting started with the patterns, I will briefly mention 3 things which are essential to know about when using candlesticks. First, candlesticks should never be looked at by themselves only, but in combination with other indicators, like trend lines, MACD, and most important of all, money management. Secondly, in order for a trend reversing candlestick pattern to work, there must have been an up or down trend before the pattern was formed. If price was in a consolidation period where it didn't go much up or down, the trend reversing candlestick pattern doesn't mean anything, because there isn't any trend to reverse. Third, candlesticks does not indicate how far the price is going to go in one direction. They are only indicating that price is likely to go in one direction. And if there forms different candlesticks pattern which indicates the same thing, it doesn't mean that price is going to go longer in the direction the multiple patterns indicated, but only that it is more likely that price is going to go in the indicated direction. In order to analyze how far price is going to go in one direction, You must instead look at support and resistance, trend lines, and money management. As a little side note, I could add that news override candlestick patterns. We'll say, if there is a very powerful news report to be released and a candlestick pattern is formed just before that, don't make the trade based on the candlestick pattern, because the pattern will be nullified when the news report is let loose.